All right, so you're saying Romeo and Juliet, like these feuds? That
Yeah,
was, yeah, I guess that is what happened. I mean, Romeo fell in love with Juliet, who was in like another clan, right? So then
yeah,
she was destined to be failure from the beginning, but they just loved each other anyway, right?
yep, yeah. And then there was some cruel twists of fate. They had some. I forgot what the story really was. They had some pact in the end that would allow them to escape both, and this pact in this pact involved like well, let's say what happened was that one of the two was pretending. I think Juliet was pretending that she killed herself to escape her family, and then Romeo saw it, and he thought she was dead for real, and then Romeo killed himself for real. And I
Right.
know there's another opera that is also based on tribal warfare, blood feuds. It's the Power of Destiny, or the Fate, Forza del Destino by Verdi, and it's basically also like one guy wants to elope with the daughter of an influential clan chief, and the guy is basically discovering both lovers, and
Hmm.
then the guy accidentally shoots his father-in-law, right? So he basically shoots the father of his lover. Like he wants to. He had a pistol, but he said, "Look, I'm throwing my pistol away." And when he throws the pistol away, a shot rings out, and his father-in-law is killed. And then
Oh,
the family of the father-in-law swears revenge against the guy, and it ends with the guy seeming to prevail, and then in the last minute, when he kneels over his foe that he thought he has killed, the foe takes out a knife and stabs him. And this basically shows you that there's this hatred is never ending. It even carries after death. And that was actually the nature of blood feuds in Europe. And I think blood feuds I mean, people like to think about, oh, that's so medieval. All these, like in Muslim nations, for example, sometimes they have blood feuds, right? Oh, that's barbaric. But no, I mean, Europe was the same in the 16th, 17th century. That's it, right? You fuck with some guy that was somehow related to family X, and family X comes at you and kills you and two of your other family members as well. And then your family takes revenge and goes back. And it's kind of like an extreme version of Pakt schlägt sich, Pakt verträgt sich. That's the German phrase we used in our childhood when we were like upset with our friend, and then my parents used to tell me, "Oh, people beat each other up, people make good." So, but
hmm.
in blood feuds, people not just beat each other up, people finally beat each other up. Like people shoot each other. But yeah, it's very
Yeah.
interesting. Human nature, right? We don't have it anymore, but you still have honor cultures, and that still happens when in Germany you have people from Balkan states, for example. Yeah, they can still be the daughter dishonored the family by sleeping with her boyfriend right before she got married. So then they even may even kill their own daughter, which is super barbaric, but that it has happened, right?
Right.
And it's interesting. It's an interesting part of human nature, and it's difficult to get out of those cycles of violence.
Yeah. Yeah. The only ways, I guess, you have to choose to be not violent, you know, but I guess, yeah, it has to end somewhere. Like somebody has to take an L, at one point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You have to break with your family basically, because sure enough, there will always be somebody who thinks you should take revenge, right? So as long as you have like just one person there who eggs you on, it's really difficult to say it stops here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you got like 100 years war or whatever in France
yeah,
and England, basically. Oh boy.
yeah. Yeah, and like all kinds of. I mean, I think the wars just stops once a critical mass of people is killed. I mean, you take the 30-year war, which I know a little bit more about than the 100-year war, but the 30-year war, you had mercenaries that would roam the countryside, and they wouldn't care. They would just kill they would just kill and take whatever treasures they get, and then the next mercenary gang comes and kills them. It was like until everyone was dead, more or less, over 30 years.
Yeah, it's crazy that people survived, at all in that situation.
Yeah, it is. It's like like you have these scenarios where a big like Stephen King, The Stand, where a virus escapes, right? But you still have like a couple of hundred people surviving because like one like in that case, 1% of people just through pure sheer luck, they don't have a certain receptor that the virus needs to dock to the cells, so the virus doesn't affect those people. Everyone else dies, but they just stay alive for whatever. They get in contact with the virus, but they don't die from it. And every endemic, even the worst, there's always like a few survivors. Like even Ebola, some people survive it unscathed,
Hmm,
and yeah, and then you just like completely reset civilization. Now you have a handful of 100 people, they need to restart everything anew, and then everything changes for the next 100 to 200 years until something else like this happens. And war is the same. Some people just are. I mean, how lucky are you to survive? Somebody walks into town and shoots everyone. Okay, 1% survivors. Okay, you're the only one. Then out of the 100 towns in the area, there's just one person out of the 1 of 100 that survives everything. So if you scale it up, you're still left with 1,000 people to run a country from a couple million before. But it's dumb luck. But since there's so many people on the earth, you still are left with a sizable number of people that can still keep things running. But yeah,
crazy.
your likelihood to survive in a pandemic is extremely low.
Yeah. Sheesh. Well, on that note,
Yep.
I guess bringing it back to academic composition.
Yep.
Um, well, so the question that I talked to with Keith about was indentured servitude, and there's this issue now of people basically going into debt in order to get a college degree,
Yeah.
and having a college degree is useful, but then the question is, how much money do you have to put yourself in order to get that degree? Like, how much is it worth? And if there's any way to avoid it, if there's any way to avoid it, basically, like, because I guess people can sort of be in denial about it because people think
Yeah.
that they should just okay, we should just straight go to college. Just they don't even. It's almost like unconscious. Like people just go to college.
Yeah.
But by doing that, I mean that's like a huge. Most people take out loans, so that can really like affect your life. Like with indentured servants, Keith was saying, people would give up years of their life in exchange for room and board, and you would basically work to survive, and you would exchange a certain amount of time, years of your life in order to do
Yeah.
that. A lot of people like that would come from Europe that came to the United States. They didn't have anybody in the United States that they could come to. Like they didn't have money back in Europe. So what they would do is a family would host them in the States, but they would have to work off the debt for like say 5 years, 10 years. So the idea was that with college, you're basically going into debt, and in order for you to pay that off, it's going to be, people have $100,000 or more in debt, which could be like, at least 10 years to pay off, maybe more. So Keith was
Yeah.
basically saying that it's sort of like taking out a college loan can be like indentured servitude. And then we were talking about, okay, if you have to do this in order to get ahead, like some people have to, is there a way to beat it? Is there a way to beat the system to get out ahead in front of it? So I guess the first question to you is, do you think that Keith is right about that? Like, is college similar to indentured servitude in the sense that you have to give years of your life in order to get this degree?
Yeah. I mean, the question is when does an investment become servitude, right? If you invest $100,000 into becoming a doctor, and then later on you expected to make 200 to 300,000 per year as a physician, then yeah, you take the temporary hit to your income because you have a good income come back to you. Pilots, for example, very different class of profession. They pay a lot. I think they pay almost 100,000 or more to get a license, and then they can actually make good money to pay down that license. In that case, it is okay. But colleges have now abused their duty basically to give people to basically safeguard people's investments and give them the best possible return on their interest, right? So colleges just made it into indentured servitude because what what purpose does it serve you to also take courses in social justice or environmental justice, or courses that are just fillers? For the colleges, it's very easy. They just if they have a spare room, they just hire an adjunct and pay this adjunct $30,000 like they do in New York. They don't need to invest much into that guy, but they get a lot of student fee payments from students, right? So the colleges become lazy. The colleges don't act responsibly anymore, and then the students become indentured servants, basically. Yes, that's very true. And ways out of that misery are basically, for example, you have universities that don't charge students at all, right? So basically, they offer programming courses, and then the students just pay when they actually have their job. And now you can, of course, students could abuse that. They just get a free education and don't seek for a job afterwards. Those universities cannot force students to seek a job. But I mean, yeah, come on. I mean, why would you go to? I mean, the vast majority of people, I like to believe, they know better things to do with their time than just waste their time on going for college and not doing anything with it, right? So most students want
Yeah.
to get done anything with it, and so that's a good way, right? Because that forces both students to apply themselves because they want to have a good job, so they will really learn, and the colleges also have to have to give them education that is actually helping them, right? Otherwise, if you really want to be a well-rounded person, that's one of the phrases that colleges put around, like, yeah, we teach you all this literature to be a well-rounded personality. um, no, that's not what you do. That was true for private students that had enough time on their hand, and they had enough money, disposable income, to just learn a little bit on college, go to literal to small, how do you call these small colleges, small town
Liberal
colleges,
arts,
really
small liberal
quaint
arts college.
liberal arts, small liberal arts college, right? And then you get like a real education because you're interested in expanding your horizon. But who can do that? People that already have money, right? So if you want to expand your horizon, the basic of the Maslow pyramid is already met. You have food, you have shelter, you have companionship. That's all taken care of. Now you just want to extend. Now you just want to use college for self-actualization. But
Right.
you cannot teach students self-actualization when they're there to learn how to provide food and shelter for themselves. And that's an abuse of their responsibility for colleges. And um, and 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 that's what happens, and that's why you end up with indentured servitude. And many of these colleges, their professors are probably well-meaning and they really believe in that students should be well-rounded, but in the end the professors really don't much care, right? They have their you know that they're probably a tenured, so they got their income. And then you know usually that would actually be interesting. Is any student ever coming back to a professor and point blank ask the professor, why did you teach me only useless stuff? I'm now working as a barista at Starbucks and it sucks, and you told me if I took your course I'm going to be a well-rounded personality, but my life just sucks. Why did you do that to me? Like confrontation like that, do students like that, are they coming back to the professor to have a real conversation? I bet it's not many students who actually do that. So professors get exposed to the students that were successful. Oh yeah, I'm at Goldman Sachs now. I'm almost like managing partner there or vice president. And that literature class that you get, that was so cool because in my interview for VP, I had this one story you told us and they loved it. And thank you again. I'm sure those students exist, but I think college professors get these success stories and then never really get exposed to the students that are miserable,
It seems
right?
like a diffusion of responsibility because, like, if you have one good professor, then I guess that makes an impact in your brain. But if you have like one bad class, you're more like, okay, that was just one bad class. You're not gonna like blame your entire college career on like this one professor.
Yeah,
So I think that's, it's kind of like you're not going to go to one teacher and be like, why did you like teach me garbage, right? Like you should be addressing, maybe that's more a question for like the dean, or like, are you going to go to all your teachers? You know what I mean? It's kind
yeah,
of
you
weird
probably
because I
would.
guess you also signed up, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I don't
mean
know.
that's what's interesting. You probably maybe there's some. I bet there's some students who use a lawyer to sue the university for teaching the wrong stuff. But I also come to my mind these pretty sites like Rate My Professor. When these sites came up, some professors were really angry that people online vented about them. But if you think about it, it's actually a godsend for professors as well. The students just vent their anger on the site, and that means they don't make the extra trip to the professor. The professor would rather have those students venting on the side than showing up at their office and asking them all these angry questions.
Yeah,
So I can
exactly.
imagine. So right, but let's be clear. The most professors that are adjuncts, I don't think those professors are super happy either. I mean, as I said, in New York City, when I was still in research, I had several offers, or people who would search for jobs in New York, who would search for people that would come teach science at like some high school or some smaller college, and they would offer you 36,000 for 6 months or something like that, or for nine
Hmm.
months. But it really came down to something that was really below the median income for this area. The median income for this area is 70,000 bucks. If you pay someone 36,000 a year, like for to be an adjunct professor in New York, then that's also borderline abuse of employees, right? That's also on the
Hmm.
colleges. I think the professors are not so much to blame as are the college administrators, that are basically trying to get a lot of professors in to make more money rather than selecting smaller classes and have good professor hire them and then pay them 100,000 per year. I think that would be more efficient and that would be much better for our education system. Right now, it's just a mass factory where you have like lots of lowly paid adjunct professors and a flood of courses for students that no one really needs, but the university just makes a quick buck out of it. It's almost like the Walmartification of education, or the part of the McDonaldification of education, because you're looking for cheap stuff that you can you basically, let's say it like this: the college industry in the US has commoditized education, right? Education is not something special that you give to people who really need it for their career, like lawyers, doctors, cybersecurity engineers that need to have some specific licenses. No, you just give some courses to everyone, lure students with the promise on college experience, and then basically underpay everyone, give students a shit education, pardon my French, and you just squeeze money out of society without delivering anything of value in return. So it's a very cheap, it's a very high ROI for you, but you're not colleges don't really invest anything anymore. And that would be my major criticism on colleges, right?
Yeah, I think what my impression of college was like what you said earlier, like it used to be a bunch of rich people that had extra money and they just wanted to learn some stuff. And it was only for a select small group of people. Well, I think what happened was is that everybody, wanted to be part of the club.
Yeah,
So like college has this sort of connotation where it's like a luxury, it's like a luxury good. Like like you could go to a technical school, but people don't look at it the same as if, you know, as like going to college. So yeah, I think what happened was is that everybody wanted to get that prestige, so that everybody wanted to go to college because they wanted to be part of those people, but not everybody had the money or the extra time. And then there's also the component of getting a job after, which was kind of like it's sort of like they molded the two. Like they molded the technical aspect. They're trying to combine it with like an upper class activity, but you can't because by definition, I mean the original university was like another upper class activity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the model of the past, of the college model of the past, you can't just scale that up. I think that's the big problem, and it reminds me of some, maybe like a very like a very different road here, but it reminds me of something like when you have if you work in cybersecurity and you have to protect a small business network from intruders, and you have a software that as in like an automatic intrusion detection and prevention system. So it's basically like a firewall, but it's not just blocking things, it dynamically searches for anomalies. Some people try to hack in some suspicious activity. That's what software like that does. You cannot take the software that's made for small business that has just like one or two nodes to look over and just scale that, just take the same software and just let it handle a network of 1,000 nodes. That
Hmm.
poor piece of software would be completely overloaded and would create huge bottleneck because it couldn't process all these requests in parallel. So here you would have to program the software in an entirely different way. It's not just making a bigger software. You have to introduce parallel processing. You have to completely revise the algorithm philosophy behind it. And with college, it's the same. You cannot scale up an algorithm with which you give education to a select few on some quaint liberal arts
Hmm.
college in that
Hmm.
somewhere in the countryside, and then just say, oh, we just take the same model, we just plug it into the big city universities. That just doesn't work because those people that go there, they actually seek work. They actually seek tangible skills.
At
And a
the
liberal
at
arts
the big
college,
city at the big
yeah,
city college, you mean? Okay.
yeah, I
Right.
mean, they could seek jobs at the smaller colleges as well, but that's more like as you said, the club, and people just want to have a good education to that they actually can then work afterwards, and
Hmm.
in like more than masses of students, like 95% of students, and this is just something like getting work is something that the normal students from liberal arts college already have figured out themselves, right? But so, and that's why these colleges are not really good in teaching students skills that they can actually need, tangible skills. Colleges aren't good at teaching tangible skills, at least not if they come from the liberal arts tradition. Now,
Hmm. But
college
I guess
professors
that
could
wasn't the
say,
point. I guess that wasn't even the
yeah,
original point. Yeah.
right, but
I think that's a key point here that we're going through because, like, I think people tend to lump it all together, but you actually have different categories. Like, you have the liberal arts college, which I guess would be closest to what the original idea of a college would be, where it was just a small group of people. We're just learning about random topics because we have the luxury of doing it. And then you have the large college, which is like thousands and thousands of students, where most of these people are actually trying to get jobs. And then I
yeah.
suppose you have a full technical university, which it's just full. We're just trying to teach people how to get jobs here. Like, we're not trying to teach anybody anything else.
That's true, and college professors, if they're asked about this, they will typically tend to say, "Yeah, well, of course, we expect from our students they have to apply themselves a little bit, right? They have to be self-responsible enough to look for an actual work that they can do." But you know, if it's like that, if then what's the value of college with the internet coming up? There's a web page from a blog. It's called Uncouth Reflections. One of my favorite blog posts they have. It's called "Don't Go to College, Create Your Own for $4,000," and they basically have the entire canon of literature and history of the
Mm-hmm.
Western world. I'm sure you can expand it about the Eastern world as well. Basically, have a bunch of 100, 200 books that you can all get for an average of $20 per book, and then you read that while like in your free time. That is better than, I mean, you don't need to pay $20,000 per semester for basically learning to read these books. And the greater perspective here is that of course you don't need many of these liberal arts colleges really, if the college professors expect from you to apply yourself and have own initiative, why would you even need to go to college? Then just download those books. Some are even for free. Download the PDF, read it. Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle. I have it as a PDF on my computer. I just downloaded it somewhere. I don't even need to spend money on this fundamental work of the Western canon. I don't need to spend $5,000 per month to have a college professor remind me that I should still read that book, right?
Right.
So what really is the value of a college then? And brings us to a second point, because even rich people 20 years ago, even rich kids could read Homer, Homer Simpson, or Homer in their free time, right? They didn't need to go to college either. So why were they going there? To make connections, right? So those came from rich families, and they just wanted to network. Basically, that's what lots of the IBs are still about: networking.
Well, I
That's
guess
the
part of it
main
is
benefit.
networking, making
Yeah,
friends, but also like you read the book, but then you're just in a vacuum, right? Like I guess the idea is you want to talk to someone else who's also read the book, and then you can kind of like, amongst the two of you trade ideas, right? I mean, that's the idea behind going to college when there's other people, right? I mean, that's the key, I guess. So you're just paying for the connections with other humans.
yeah, exactly. Princeton, for example, gives you access. When I was at Princeton, that was NYU as well, but Princeton more often than not. They had Hillary Clinton speak, for example. She just came and spoke at the legal at the law institute they have, and they had Salman Rushdie. They had there. They had the guy who invented the anti-baby pill, and they have others like big luminaries and big personalities, and you get access to these people, right? You can afterwards, there's a happy hour, and you get to talk to everyone, and that is how you make connections, and that's how the IBs operate, and that's big part of the entry, right? I mean, you pay seven, like, I don't know,
Did
250,000
you
a
take
year.
advantage of that much? Like, did you meet a lot of these big name people when you were there?
Yes and no. I was very much single-minded on getting to know people that were in science, and I met a lot of people in science. I met a lot of people that were big luminaries in molecular biology and developmental biology. Like every week they had a speaker, and then
Wow.
there would always be lunch for the postdocs and PhD students. We had lunch with a guy, and we could ask his mind, and it was fascinating. Some of these conversations were purely technical on the stuff that he talked about in his talk. Others were more philosophical or more like career advice. It was really
Mhm.
great. So I didn't take advantage of meeting Hillary Clinton, but I wasn't that interested in meeting politicians. I was very interested in meeting other scientists. But yeah, you can say that basically I took advantage of that. I took whenever I could meet someone, I would actually book time when there was a speaker coming, and
Mm.
they would ask around who was interested in meeting with the guy. I would always put down a slot to meet with people one on one. And I would always do that. And so you can take advantage of that big time, and if you're in a bit, that's a real advantage, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I guess that is a
uh,
key. That is one thing that you can't get by learning online is that getting a face-to-face conversation with these legends.
with his legend, that is true. But then again, I don't know with the Bronx Institute of Technology if they would have very many like people that you wouldn't anyway meet if you do a normal job search, right? To say
Hmm.
it like that, right? Of course, like these people just drop by Princeton, MIT, Harvard, you know.
Well, hey, do you remember
But
do you remember any specific people or specific conversations that really like affected your trajectory?
yeah, yeah. For example, I remember one talk with a guy named Cohen, which was a professor for Drosophila. That was my specialty. I worked in fruit flies in Princeton, and his name was Cohen. Um, let's see what his first name was. This guy was um, 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 Stephen Cohen. Stephen Cohen was a big shot in biology. He had discovered all those important pathways, biological signaling molecules, and everything. And like every year seemed to come out like with some brand new cool idea. And so we had him for lunch. I asked him a little bit about career advice, and I don't remember exactly what I asked, but he seemed disinterested. Like he was like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you gotta know what you want to do, man. And then he kind of brushed me off. And then 1 week later, Barry Cohen, another big shot, Drosophila. He didn't come from Heidelberg. He worked in Vienna, but he worked on Drosophila behavior. So they were studying aggression and mating behavior in fruit flies. And I asked that guy the exact same question. I don't know what question it was, but I remember it was the exact same question. And Barry God damn it, what was his name again? Barry. I said Barry. The second one, not Barry. My mind. Wait, give me 1 second. Stephen Cohen was the guy who brushed me off, and then
You remember that
Barry.
guy's name?
Yeah, funny, huh? Barry. Barry Dixon. And Barry Dixon was super positive and was super friendly, and he really gave me great advice. He was very, very supportive and very friendly, very personal. And that told me, and that's maybe a lesson everyone can take to heart, that it's not, you didn't, if somebody brushes you off, it's not because you asked a stupid question. Don't blame yourself when someone professor brushes you off. No, that guy may just be a dick. And because I basically proved it, right? The same question to two professors that were equally high relegated, two celebrity professors, and two completely opposite reactions to that, right? So it's not you, it's the people you ask. Like now, if you ask the same question to 20 professors and they all give you the same brushing off, maybe then you want to tweak your question a bit. But like
Hmm.
right then, no, it's not a stupid question. I mean,
Do you
no,
remember
don't get
do you
discouraged.
remember what you asked and what he answered?
I asked him about what should be the next steps, what I should specialize on. Should I go really deep in the topic I have right now, or should I go with the two other topics that I have? And I had basically three topics: one main topic and two side topics. And if you have your own professorship, you will want to develop your topics further, right? You want to get PhD students that then continue the research on the topics that you started, right? And then you manage their research. Basically, that's it. That's the difference of a professor to postdoc. And I was wondering whether I should go deep in my postdoc time on one topic, or whether I should go superficial on three topics, given that I'll manage PhD students later on as a professor myself anyway. So maybe I shouldn't need to go so deep. And he basically said, I don't recall exactly what he said, but he said something to the effect of, you know, do as much research as you would feel comfortable still getting a good publication, but it's better to get a publication out than to get the best publication out. It's better to get a professorship position fast than to try to put like 100% effort into something that might not pan out to be that great of a position that you envisioned first. He was basically talking about uh, uh, being careful of declining returns, right? You have this curve where you have like you put a lot of work in on the work you put in on the x-axis and the results you get out. And first you get a lot of results for the work you put in, but at one point you don't get so much more
Diminishing
results out for a
returns.
lot of work. Diminishing returns, that's it. Yeah. Law of
Yes.
diminishing returns. That's what he told me. And Steve Cohen just said,
So
well,
he said
get a
better
try
to
for
get a
yourself.
guaranteed return because you
Yeah.
have to deal with diminishing returns
Yep.
than to get
Yep.
nothing at all. I
Exactly,
see.
exactly. Don't try to be and that's also a good lesson, right? Don't try to be someone who does everything to perfection. And I know professors like that too. I know people in science too that had like one like normal paper, and then they would find like they would take forever to have the next publication because they try to fiddle around, like, they thought that the experiments they originally did weren't really completely conclusive, so they try to shore up the last
Hmm.
missing 10% on their research topic, while they should much rather focus on the next topic where they could actually get, with the same kind of work, 50% of return instead of just 10% more. And I think that's also a very good life lesson, to get, right. And I mean, there must be something to it, because Barry Dixon didn't become like faculty leader and director of the institute just by not knowing how to do experiments and how to manage science.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Wow.
that can apply to every parts of life, right? If you think, rather than, you know if you have limited time and you think about, should I really try to do this topic like really really deep, should I really do that, or should I outsource it? Maybe outsourcing is more of a is the smarter choice, right? I mean, it frees your mind to do other things, and maybe it's better to have to maybe some people also think they have to do everything on their own, and that's not the case, right? So maybe doing 50% of things on your own and farm the rest out is more efficient than only getting time to do one thing with 90% intensity, and then lacking on the other aspects.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. Interesting.
Because you cannot, I mean, in the end, it's, you can always see it as kind of like you just put a pause on it, right? I know how difficult it is, because I'm kind of the same way. You really 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 want to go deep. You can be perfection, you can be a perfectionist, but if it comes at the cost of you not really advancing in your career or in life, then just put it on pause. Do as much as you need to get ahead, and then do something else that also helps you to get
Yeah.
ahead, and then later on you can come back to your original research and then look back at it. Maybe you even have better ideas, and sometimes it helps to just shelve it for a while and then come back later and, yeah, I didn't think of it back then, but now it's much clearer to me, right? Stuff like that. So you got to work hard, but you also got to work smart, and putting if you get past the point of diminishing returns, there's not much there's not much benefit of putting more work into it,
Hmm.
more energy into it.
Man, there's a lot of plays. This made me think of a lot of things. Like I struggle with this with photography. Like I'm a bit of a perfectionist too.
Yeah,
So like I have every time that I take my camera out, it's like another how many photos, right?
yeah.
So the backlog just keeps building up, and like I don't like to post stuff if I don't think it's quality. Like I like to edit it and make sure it looks good. But because of that, like I almost like there are periods of time when I just don't post anything, and I have this huge backlog because I'm just like I want it to be perfect, right? But then I end up doing nothing, right? So that's an interesting lesson, that you're talking about. Like I'm trying to balance, perfection with just doing
That's actually
something.
a, that's actually a really interesting point. I remember just yesterday I just finished listening to a podcast by Joe Rogan of, I don't know his real name, but he goes by the name Mr. Beast. And if you
Hmm.
are into YouTube, you apparently really know who Mr. Beast is. Mr. Beast has a YouTube channel and has a couple 100 million subscribers, and he gets so much money in that he can do insane stunts that cost like millions of dollars to just conduct them. For example, they recreated the Squid Game in
Yeah.
a studio, which cost them a couple $1 million to do. But he also does charity drives. He like, I don't know, he would come up with like buying 1 million hamburgers and just spending them, like distributing through town on the homeless or something like that. So he does insane stuff, and he basically said that he was single-mindedly only doing YouTube from beginning of 14 years. He was not going to college at all. He was just doing YouTube, and he had like two other people that also did YouTube, and he would brainstorm with them for 10 hours
Hmm.
a day, every day. And he went all in, and it was an insane level of dedication, but apparently has paid off. However, he also talked about another guy who started with him, and he put also a lot of that guy also put a lot of dedication into it, and his channel didn't take off. So that guy is fine now too, but but it seems to me that there's also some level of luck involved, but also some level of skill. So you should really go all in. If you're really passionate about something, you need to go all in, like
It's a hard
everything,
lesson for a lot
100%.
of viewers, I'm sure.
It is,
but
right?
but it's true. It's true. Sometimes you got to go in. You can't be on the fence because then you miss the opportunity and then you just lose. You lose it. It's you get
Right.
nothing.
Right. And but it's also, you also have to be a little bit, you have to also have in mind, you have to watch out a little bit if you put a lot of effort into it, and then, nothing really materializes, then maybe you can add some technical fixes, but in some cases it may not be worth pursuing that, right? I mean, many
Mm,
businesses fail, and then they just start, their business owner just starts a new venture and eventually becomes successful. But you either go in insanely much, like so much work that I wonder whether, this curve of diminishing returns, whether there's like, if you just go far enough, the returns take up again. That may happen at one point, right? Because you get like, if you are someone, like if you're the open 1% of the open 1% of the open 1%, then at one point in what you do, you're just completely alone and nobody can really compete with you at that point.
right.
But
I guess the
you
issue
know,
is you never know when if you're hitting the diminishing. Like you never know if you're where you are on the graph, right? Like you don't know if you're like here or
yeah,
you're like at this point, right? Hmm.
yeah, that's the thing. That's why it's so difficult, right? You have these graphics where you have like two people digging for gold, and one
Yeah.
person is just shown here at the end of a tunnel, and the other person has just broke through and saw the treasure, and that guy just stops 1 inch before, just 1 inch more, and he could have had the treasure. But you don't know if it's 1 inch
Right.
more. It's a
Right.
difference whether you have to, whether there's 1 inch more, or whether this is just inch number 1,100,023, right? so
Man,
so
that's a very interesting point actually, like tying this all together. Like I actually saw Elon Musk once and I saw him at a commencement speech for
uh
like USC. It was the business school. So
yeah,
when they graduated, he went to give a talk, right?
yeah,
And basically what I remember about that talk was that Elon, he stood in front of everybody and everybody was expecting, like everybody had huge expectations because it's fucking Elon, right?
yeah,
And he goes up there and then he starts talking. And it was kind of like you could tell that he was kind of awkward, It was almost like a
yeah,
semi-autistic guy, like trying to give a speech. So I think a lot of people were underwhelmed. But then I
yeah,
remember basically what he said was he was basically like, yeah, like when I was trying to work on Tesla and SpaceX, I basically just like lived in an apartment for like years. My girlfriend had to like sleep on the couch and I just had to like work my butt off. Like you guys basically just have to like work your butts off in order to succeed. And and he basically said it kind of like not in a very charismatic way. He just kind of like said it. And I think people were kind of expecting like this, like flowery speech and they didn't get it. He was basically just like, guys, like work hard. And he was kind of awkward about it. But it made me think, he's like, first of all, I mean, I guess he's right. You just have to work your butt off. And two, it kind of struck me more that somebody like Elon could succeed, but he wasn't like this grand like Obama type speaker, He was just like a normal guy. Like it's hard to I don't know if that makes sense. Like he was just
yeah,
like a regular person, trying to communicate. And I
yeah.
guess that's what it is sometimes, not sometimes it's not just glamorous, sometimes it's just nose to the grindstone, I suppose. But
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, in
I
any
guess it would be
case,
interesting to shadow one of these people and to really see what do they mean by working hard. Do they mean like, because there's plenty of people that work hard, um, like I'm sure there are janitors that work 70 hours per week or 80 hours per week just to make ends meet, right? So do you work like this? Does it mean hard work like that level hard work, would someone like Elon say, no, no, man, work hard, but don't be crazy? You know, um,
maybe what do
I
you put
think
your
in the
work
end it
into?
depends on, yeah, what you put your work into, because you can work on something that is like, you can start an online business about underwater basket weaving. There's like a group of 5 enthusiasts worldwide. that you can sell to it, which is great. But you can work hard at it, but it's like a real waste of your resources, right? Work on something that is proven to get you return, and it's just not. You just don't really know what gets you return. That's a difficult thing to gauge, right? I mean, if people know on that mountain there's a treasure trove of gold, they would work hard like crazy to get there. There would be no problem for them to get there. But if your goal isn't like your goal doesn't have a certain value, and you don't think you can attain it, then people just won't work hard. I think it's very natural. You first have to have a vision of something that you want to do, and that can be something very mundane, but you need to know exactly what you want to do, and it needs to be something. So that needs to be a valuable vision. Like, for example, I want to have a family with 2 kids and a house somewhere in the countryside. Okay, that's probably attainable, and it's valuable to you, and it's attainable. So you can basically then look for a job that gets you there. I mean, nowadays it's not that easy anymore, but it's still attainable, right? If you have that clear goal, and if you don't, then you tend to drift from one area to the other. And the second thing is not trusting that you can attain a goal. And I think that's where just working hard comes in, because you all of a sudden realize that, oh man, yeah, so many more things are possible if I just put myself to it and work on it. For example, case in point, I'm on a weight loss transformation now, and there's a big prize of it over 90 days. The winner of the competition gets $5,000. That competition. So that is certainly something very valuable for me. And I always started dieting in the past. I always stopped after 2, 3 weeks. Not anymore. I want there. I know I can get the best possible result out of it. I don't know whether I'll win or not, but I know that it's worth a shot. I know that it's in principle attainable for me to transform my body, because I've done it before. I know that I can lose weight, and but if there's no clear goal in mind, and I don't or the goal is not reachable for me, I will not put my energy into losing weight, right? I
Mhm.
should
Mhm.
know that it's good for my health and all that. And to that point I'm getting now, after doing 1.5 or one after doing 2 months of this now, I feel completely different. I feel happier. I feel lighter, and I'm much less tempted to just, oh, just screw it. I'm just gonna gorge on some cake today. No, I'm not doing that anymore, because I know that it has already helped me, and it has made me better in many other respects as well. But so ultimately you have to have a clear vision that is valuable to you, and this vision needs to be attainable. But even if you don't find that in the beginning, just keep your head down to the grindstone. Just work hard at whatever you do for a month or for two. And if no goal, no vision crystallizes after 2 months, yeah, then abandon it, do something else. But since you put your nose down to the grindstone, you now already know that you can apply yourself. And once you find your vision, you could push yourself. But ultimately, it's very important to find a vision that you like, and to find a vision that's valuable to you and that's attainable, right? And
Mhm.
then everyone is able to work hard, and you don't have to worry about motivation, right? Because you know
Right.
what your end
I
goal
think
is.
once you have a clear goal, then the steps to accomplish it sort of become much more easily visible, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're like, all right, I have to lose 10 pounds, right? As opposed to I have to lose weight, right? If you're like, I have to lose 10 pounds, then that makes it very clear. You're like, okay, how many pounds per week? How many calories? And then you're able to more specifically target it as opposed to if your goal is just very vague, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Mhm.
also, yeah, exactly. And something, I think some things, um you have people that are willing to pay. Some businesses are, some people are just willing to pay $1 million for a Lamborghini. So if you are a janitor, and like you take care of somebody like that's home, right? You do the same job that you do taking care of some government building, but guess who pays you more, right?
Mhm.
That also makes your life a little easier. It's not always working hard is so. First of all, you must work hard, but that sort of comes by on its own if you know your goal. and this is attainable. But also you can make your workload that much more efficient, right? If you go around and ask, like, you can take that job that's offered to you to just be a night watchman in like some government facility and you get paid minimum wage, or you can spend 2 3 weeks, knock on people's door in a rich area of town and offer them your service, and one of them will probably say, "Oh, let me think. Yeah, I have this abandoned building that I never find someone who does a good job. But if you want to start there, yeah, I can pay you. I can pay you 100,000 per year if you just be a janitor for that work, and if you can also repair some things here and there, yeah." And then they pay you more, right? There's a fictitious example, but it shows you that hard work. You also need to be a little bit smart about it. If you're willing to work hard, you should also work for clients that pay you more,
Mhm.
right?
Well,
And that's not that
okay.
difficult, right?
Let's say like let's just try and tie it back all together to like your average academic composition customer. Like
Mhm.
how do you we have a lot of I guess tips here. We have one, we have to be choose your goal and be specific about it, right? I guess
Yeah,
two, work hard, but you have to work hard at the right things.
yeah,
Um, what else was there? Number three, was there anything else?
yeah. Look for work on the right things and work for the right people. Work for
Work for the
people
right
that can
people.
actually reward your work, or work in a way that your return is maximized, right? That may also mean, I mean, you can be a janitor, or you can take that. That's the classic way of starting a business, right? You can be a janitor, get paid 100,000 per year, or you hire people that do the repairs, you pay them a little, those become your employees, and then you can take care of three rich people's store, and now all of a sudden you make more with you put your work to making more money instead of putting your work to put your time. You like
Mm,
try to convert your time, because even if you get paid handsomely per hour, you can just always do more if you manage to leverage something else than your time, right? If you build a system to make money, if you hire other people, for example, if you have a blog that sells things, affiliate marketing, all these kind of things that pay you, and you don't need to invest time into them, and they still pay you, right? Find something that's effective in paying you, something that
mm,
gets you the best return on investment. Because if you just sacrifice your time to work hard, then there's a limit. I mean, you cannot, you know there's 10 hours per day that you can work nonstop, probably, in realistically in a month. You cannot work 80 hours per week for 10 years, right? That's
mm.
impossible. So you can't leverage your time indefinitely, right? So you need to find a way to make more money
Right.
for
Work
the
for the
effort
right
you put in.
people.
Yeah, work for the
That makes
right people,
sense.
and yeah, yeah,
I guess so. Choose your goal, work hard, and then work for the right people. And I guess work
yeah,
for the right people kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. Is that I know we trash. Sometimes we're like, make sure you're sure about going to college. But if you are going to college, the main thing that separates college from just working online is the fact that you get to face meetings and you get to meet all these big names. And maybe
yeah,
that's your ticket out. Your ticket out is to you know, other people are also working hard, but what will set you apart is if you can get some kind of connection with, somebody who's higher up, like somebody who's I guess a legend, right? That's really the goal of college is that you work hard to try and meet the right people. And that's
yeah.
what's gonna, I guess, get you forward.
So the way I did that in the past was that when I studied biochemistry in Hanover in Germany, there was a requirement of us to do 3 lab internship. One internship had to be within University of Hanover, and 2 others needed to be outside of Hanover. And so we were doing it in like an internship of 1 or 2 months, and those internships actually help you to, if you do well in those internships, they will hire you. The lab head will hire you afterwards, because it's
Mm-hmm.
it's you tried and tested, they like you, hopefully, and so they offer you a job. And then if you apply, don't apply to the big shots right away. Apply to the ones that did learn from the big shots. Like, for example, if you want to work for Elon Musk, ultimately, don't go directly apply to him. Apply to someone who worked with him in the past. Maybe someone who worked with Elon Musk and had their own little business that they outsourced, and now he has his own business. You work for that guy is probably easier to access, right? And then that guy can get you recommendation that you can eventually go work with Elon Musk
Hmm.
in this fictitious example, fictional example.
Hmm.
Um, that applies to many parts in life. I mean, yes, there are people who go directly from college to one of the big investment banking house. Like, I don't know much about investment banking, but I imagine career-wise it's similar to other careers, right? I would imagine if you want to become an investment banker, maybe it makes sense to first try to do an internship at a
Right.
smaller boutique investment bank. And since it's like a smaller bank, maybe you don't earn as much, maybe it doesn't sound as glamorous as Goldman Sachs, but um, but then when you do a good job at the smaller bank, you can advance. And I know people that started to work on Wall Street and some investment banking, and they switched to hedge funds where they can make more money. But they didn't jump into hedge funds from the get-go, most of them.
Hmm.
But if they did a good job at the investment bank where they worked at like for 5 years, it's much easier to get into the hedge fund. And
Don't just
I
think you
think
can
that,
jump
like,
straight to the top, I guess. You can't just skip the line. Sometimes you gotta put in your
right.
your time, I guess. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you can. I know people who did. I mean, they're certainly like come back to science, big labs, celebrity scientists. They will take they will take somebody who just finished university to work in their lab. So if you're lucky, you can work in that. But then also you're a little fish in a big pond, right? That's also one thing, right? Right after college, you land. Let's say you go to one of the big shots, and now you are like there's a big pond. You're not you're not the number one guy anymore, right? You made it, congratulations, but now you just one out of many. So why not go to a smaller lab where you can be maybe a small startup lab, right? That just started. You help them get going, and you can be the number one, the best person. You can be the first PhD student in that lab, right? That PI will now warmly recommend you to the bigger lab. And so you basically took steps to go there where you ultimately wanted to go. And you already have more experience under your belt. And so then you're not anymore like a small fish in a big pond anymore. Right? Now you're
Hmm.
already someone with some experience, and who can be trusted with more significant tasks maybe. And it's in the end, like, it makes your life much easier, because
Hmm.
you learned all these things. You know, when things go wrong in your first lab, you know how to deal with that. You had a lot of help dealing with unforeseen things. If you jump into a big lab from the get-go and something unforeseen happens, you're on your own. You got to figure that all out on your own. And other people aren't necessarily there to help you because you're their competition in a way, right?
Hmm.
So there's like some stories from big labs I heard where some principal investigators would put two postdocs independently of one another on the same topic, and they then just promote the one who got the result faster. That's pretty brutal, right? And you got to protect yourself from shenanigans like that as well. So if you want to do a solid career, it's better, in my view, for the vast majority of people to take small steps and excel on the small step, and then go big. Of course, the danger is that you don't want to go big anymore, right? So maybe then you discover after 5 years in a smaller lab that you really only being an adjunct professor somewhere is good enough for you. If that's a
Is there
mistake, I
any
don't know,
way?
right? That's just a
Is there any way that like while you're in college or in grad school, you can implement what you're talking about? Like, is there any actionable advice we can give our
yeah,
clients for now?
yeah, yeah. For example, you can ask a professor whether you can help them. You can whether you can maybe a professor starts a book club or journal club. You can just sign up for that and just offer your help. get on the professor's radar for something, not just be another student, but be someone who actually provides value to the guy, right? So basically say, okay, I can post flyers in that part of the university to get people on. I can talk to people to get to that, to get to your journal club, and that's actually what I did when I was at university. I actually tried to help them. I offered my help whenever I could, and then later on, those professors that I helped during my studies, they recommended me. They gave me good recommendation for my next job search. So you need to be more active yourself for that. And I was very enthusiastic about biochemistry then. I was looking for ways to become more active, and maybe that's not everyone's thing, right? Maybe somebody has, maybe people also have a lot to do at home, and they handle family. Maybe they're single moms. You know, maybe they just have a lot of other activities. Maybe they do college sports. Just don't have that much time to do much extra. But find some way to provide value to the people that may be important for your career, right?
Mhm.
Don't kiss up to them, but think about something that could help them. And sometimes it's even a small
Mhm.
gesture that may already
Right.
make somebody's day, and they'll be happy to promote you. So that's kind of like a 10% or 5 to 10% own initiative that you can show, and that really goes a long way, because nobody else does that. Many students just go to
Mhm.
college and they just sit there, and then they go home and they are never heard of again. So right,
Mhm.
professors are extremely happy when students come to them and show some own initiative. They're like, their face lights up. They're like, wow. They think,
Yeah.
man, I give this lecture for 10 years, and finally one student comes up and is really
Yeah.
interested in this stuff.
Yeah.
And and that way it doesn't always work out, right? The chemistry doesn't always work out, but just try to do that. Apply yourself a little bit beyond just
Mhm.
going to college, and that goes a long way in allowing yourself have a good career.
That's a very good
Yeah,
point. That's a very good point. I guess choose your goal, one, work hard, work for the right people, and then once you find the right people, then you try and provide them some kind of value, I suppose, and you work hard at that.
yeah.
Nice.
And especially in college, you provide that value for free, and then people want to give back. Usually, if you give someone something for free, that person is now compelled to give you something back. That's another part of life advice. If you don't know whether somebody is just is really friendly genuinely with you, or whether he's just kind of passive aggressive and really deep down hates you, just do a service for the person. Give the person a gift, give the person something of value. If that person is passive aggressive, or let's say if that person is genuinely happy for you, he'll be super happy receiving some kind of gift or service from you. If he
Mhm.
deep down wants you to fail, he will be very angry if you do him a favor, because he feels now he has to reciprocate for someone who he really doesn't want to do something for, right? So that's a
Mhm.
test. If the person gets angry, if somebody gets angry if you do them a favor unpromptedly, be, be careful. That person is probably not a fan of yours.
Mhm. Very good point. Very good point.
Mm.
On that note, I wanted to go back to what we were talking about before about how we have three different sorts of classes of college. We have a liberal arts school, which is almost purely just an education without necessarily many job training. You have
Yeah.
the other opposite end, which is just a purely technical college where you're not really learning anything outside of what you need to learn for your job. And then you sort of have the middle ground, which is the large college where it's just like a mass education of like thousands of students, right?
Hmm.
Where people are trying to get a degree, but then they're also trying to get a job, and then they're trying to like do everything at once, right?
Yeah.
Um, when you went to Princeton and NYU, or I guess throughout your career or your academic career,
Yeah.
what type of institution did you attend? Did you attend liberal arts? Did you attend a multitude of different types? What was that like?
I
And then
did.
how? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I went to Germany. I went to biochemistry. I studied biochemistry in Germany. And back then, that was the 90s when I started studying, 1995. Uh, First of all, Europe is a different university landscape a little bit than the US. Um, and times were different back then as well. I would say I went to a technical school. Went to a math school, but did a very technical subject matter, right? Biochemistry. There was a lot of lab work involved. We were standing in the lab basically 2/3 of our time. When other people could take off for the holidays or work in restaurants or whatnot, we had to stand in a lab. They would put like all like internal lab internships where those were not the internships I talked about earlier. Those were not, didn't go into a different lab and do a topic there. No, you would basically do like experiments that were prescribed to you that you needed to do to learn something. Like, for example, like in physical chemistry, we had an experiment that we had to do about oil and water, and we had to mix those liquids, and then we had to do real measurements. I mean, sophisticated measurements on that, and then construct a real physical chemistry curve of how liquids are mixing. And some liquids don't mix and some liquids mix. Oil and water don't mix, others mix perfectly well, and stuff like that. So from that point, we basically had a technical niche in the mass university. And then the Max Planck Institute for Molecular Cell Biology and Genetics was purely science, purely technical. And then Princeton and NYU is once again a more inclusive mass university, although Princeton and NYU are you know Princeton is an Ivy League, and NYU is basically um, is basically one of the big universities in New York. It's not an Ivy League, but some departments of it are akin to Ivy League departments, and that's where I went. But Princeton is more okay. Hanover was more of this mass education school. Princeton is, as an Ivy League school, more like a liberal arts school, and NYU is more like a mass college. Like, they let you do things that are,
Mhm.
not necessarily useful for you in your career. But then again, there's a lot of Starbucks in New York.
Uh-huh. Okay, so it's interesting you said Princeton was sort of the more towards the liberal arts end of it.
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah.
How many students attend Princeton generally?
I don't know. I have to just wait.
Let's see, like what made it seem that way? Or, because I actually assumed that it would, like an Ivy League would be like a large institution with like a ton of students attending, but I could be wrong about
No, 8,623 in 2017. That's all.
that. Okay.
8,500 people in Princeton. And so they have a graduation rate that is 96%. So almost everyone who goes to Princeton graduates. I can imagine only like 4% that really like drop out of college, and then they also become like the next Jeff Bezos. Probably the reason that they graduate, almost everyone, is that they have a 6% acceptance rate. And
Hmm.
I dated a girl once. She was a student at Tufts, and she got back as an alumni to help them select a new crop of students at Tufts. And Tufts is not an Ivy League, but they would also select students based on what these students did in school. If you are a student, if you want to get to Princeton or Harvard, it's not enough to have the best grades. It simply is not. You have to have, and notwithstanding there's some affirmative action and maybe there's some anti-Asian people bias, and certain there is one, but that notwithstanding, they are actively looking for people that have done something out of the ordinary. Like they would, if you want to be accepted at Yale or Princeton, you basically have to have written your own theater plays um, during your high school time. you have to form like a Habitat for Humanity organization, like, or something like that. You have to do something that is really special and that is not taught in school. So they want to have people that are already basically leadership material from a very early age. Also, not a surprise that those people graduate, because those people are already networked to the hilt. If you have written a theater piece in your senior high school year, right, or in your last 4 high school years, if you have built a music instrument, if you have painted something that is now have a first exhibit in some art gallery, if you have composed music, if you have written a play, like any of that, chances are you already know a lot of people that are already like in pretty elite circles. And that's also one way in which these Ivy League schools probably keep their network intact and add to the networks. They don't have the network and then they just invite students that can just profit from the network. They invite students that already bring more of the network in. And
Very interesting point. Very interesting point.
and the point is, and that's what she told me, that the reason that they very, I mean, that's how she explained it. I'm not so sure that was the only reason, but they say that Asian students, they are often singly dedicated to just getting the best grades ever, because their parents think and they themselves think that they need to be among the top 0.0001% of academic achievers. But the sad reality is that is not looked on favorably by Ivy League
Mm,
administrators. So then the students often end up in the California University of California system, which is public. They take them for good grades on the base of good grades alone. And so that's also one of the
that's a
reasons
super
why,
interesting point.
uh-huh. As I said, I mean, there's also studies and research now that show that there's some affirmative action bias against certain ethnicities, and there are people who have sued Harvard for that. There are lawsuits going on. So there's probably not the only truth, but yeah, these Ivy Leagues, they want to expand their networks, and that's on that base is how they
Right.
choose students. And if you just think getting the best grades is enough, we are at the diminishing return again, right? It may be 90, maybe instead of being 99.999% of your effort into just schoolwork, only dedicate 90% and then use the other 10% for doing something extracurricular and something big, right? Something
Mm,
really like traveling to traveling to India, do an internship at a hospital that helps the poor, or something like that, that is a benefit for society, and that gets you that is something where people say, wow, really, you did that? So it
mm,
needs to have a wow factor. It needs to be something that has impact on society, however you want to define it. I think that's up to the reviewer.
right.
Some reviewers think if you build if you build a plane, that's some great contribution. Others think if you went to the inner city and helped disadvantaged kids, or however you want to define that, then only then you're doing something extraordinary.
Right. I guess
You also have
I guess
to,
it's
yeah,
kind of I guess it kind of ties it all together because what we were talking about in the beginning of this conversation was that you can get the same information that you would get at a school nowadays online,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So the main thing that the main value of a school nowadays is essentially the connections and the network that you get, right? And so if there's a school like Princeton or Harvard where they're, at the top, it's like we were talking about before. It's like they want somebody who can provide them value. They don't just
yeah,
want somebody who's going to suck all the resources from
yeah,
from their network. They
yeah,
want somebody
exactly.
who can add to their network and then who can maybe even spread the reputation of that school, further and further. And I think
Yeah,
it's interesting what you said about the Asian students because it's a lot different in Asian countries because
yeah,
what happens is the reason that academics are so focused upon is because there's such a large population and there's such a large government that they need a large administrative force and there's a
Yeah.
large bureaucracy. So the people that they get for the bureaucracy are the people that do well on the tests. So it's sort of a different purpose. Like in Asian countries, they need people to do well in the tests so that the government can pull those people for those positions. But in the States,
Yeah.
it's not exactly the same. It's sort of like college is not as tied to the government as it is in Asian countries. So I think people from Asia come here thinking that it's going to be the same sort of mentality where if they just do well, they have good grades, they're going to get pulled into a certain position that they would in the government. But it doesn't work the same way in the States because here it's more about the network. It's more about the network as opposed to the merit, if that makes sort of some sense. Like you need merit, but you also need some other network kind of context around you. And in Asia, it's sort of different. It's sort of they just want you for the merit, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So
also a bit unfair in a way because if you grow up in Asia, you probably are not exposed to. I mean, how do you know what the right way is to networking, right? I'm sure that Asian student, like Asian student, if they grow up with American, like they if, let's say Asian parents come to the States and then their children are born here, those children will be much more integrated into the culture. They know by the age of 16 or 17 what good networking means, right? They know what it means to be of value here, what it means, how you get to the point where society or those administrators from Ivy Leagues regard you as a valuable person. But if you are growing up in a different country, then it's really difficult. You're not exposed to the culture, right? So basically, what I want to say is that the Ivy Leagues look for somebody who provides cultural value in a way, right? Networking,
mhm.
you can't network if you don't provide some cultural value, right? So how are you supposed to find out what that really means? How are you supposed to really understand that if you haven't grown up here? And even then, I can imagine that some Asian students or some even Asian Americans that are born here, if they're very sheltered by their parents, if the parents decide they have to learn, they
Mhm.
also don't get much exposed. They don't get friends, many friends that are here and that are like
Right.
integrated into larger part of society. They're not exposed to things that are really important for their career. And there's also some kind of cultural mismatch. On the other hand, I also have to say, just because some administrators think it's great to have a certain network here doesn't mean that that really is a valuable network to have connection to, right? That's how we got into all this safe spaces and social justice. And not all community organizing is of great value to society. It's also something that after a while people also become lazy, right? There are enough community organizers that just hang out and are lazy, and they can just present themselves very well, and so they may even appeal to Ivy Leagues or to other colleges and think, wow, he really did great stuff, but it really doesn't have much value for society, right? So that's the flip side of that. And I think things were clearer back in the 60s and 70s when having an engineering degree was much more about engineering itself and not about adding all kinds of like environmental and social justice, or
Mhm.
where you learn about economy, and you do an MBA, but now you also need to learn about compliance and governance, and
I
that's
guess
an
that is the
HR.
difference. I guess that is the difference with the strictly liberal arts college, like the smaller liberal arts college, is that the focus more over there is on the networking. And then I suppose if you're going
Yeah,
for an engineering degree where it's more technical, then the focus is more on, what is your ability in this skill.
yeah, yeah,
Quick question, actually. So you were talking about the cultural value that you would provide.
yeah.
How did you, I guess, how did you deal with that when you applied? Because you're from Germany. So how did you deal with that when you came to the States? How was that?
I took a shortcut. Now, how it goes in science is basically I didn't attend Princeton as an undergraduate or graduate student. I went directly there as a postdoc. And the only qualification that you need is a postdoc if you want to go. So in science, if you want to go, if you want to do a research career in science, you do your PhD thesis and then you do a postdoc. And the one major criterion for applying for a postdoc position is to have good publications. And I had good publications for my PhD thesis. And so I applied to 3 universities. One was in France, in Paris. One was in New York, NYU, and one was in Princeton. And Eric Wieschaus, who I ended up with, was like one of the biggest figures in Drosophila research. And I was interested in Drosophila fruit fly research. And I thought, man, if I'm just applying to labs, and I'm already in New York applying to Ruth Lehmann's lab, why not just like take a visit and take the opportunity to talk to Eric Wieschaus? Just talking to that guy would be amazing, right? And while I'm already there, as a German, just being in the US, just why am I just not hopping over to Princeton and see whether I could talk to him about my research? And that was the mindset I took in going there. And he invited me to give a talk. And back then, I was very relaxed. And when he asked me what I would do, he gave me a selection of topics I could work on. And for me, that was just discussing science. I didn't really realize that he was basically thinking about what kind of job he may offer me. And
Hmm.
and I said, oh, yeah, okay, that's an interesting topic. So how I would solve that topic, I would use this kind of software, I would do those kind of measurements, and then we could in the first month do this and that, and then the second month we could get a step further and I don't know, use another mutant to see whether the process that we're looking at is the same in those mutant as
Mm-hmm.
compared to the wild type. And so I basically behaved as if I was already working in his lab. And I
Mm-hmm.
basically painted himself, and that was the impression I left him with. And he was offering me a job,
Mm-hmm.
which I of course took. So that's another advice. If you're looking for a job, probably the best thing to do is to not think about how to make a good impression. Of course, dress nicely and all that, be friendly everywhere, but know what the company is doing. Imagine what you could do for that company. Imagine yourself working for that company, and then when you apply, just find an opportunity to bring that in and tell them how you would specifically help them. If you say that, then they're much more inclined to hire you because you already painted a picture. In sales is basically how do you say, accepting the sale. You don't ask someone for the sale. Don't ask, would you be interested in buying this? Would you be interested in hiring me? No, you said, okay, once you hired me, if you hire me, I would do this, and that. And on my first day, I would do this. And after 3 months, I think we should have figured out this problem.
Mm-hmm.
I could work together with that team. And this, I can provide this service, and we would have that outcome. If you paint
Right.
a picture very specifically, then they already basically think about you sitting there, right? You want the person who hires you already imagining you sitting there, right?
Right. Right.
You want them, that means you're friendly, they see you as someone they can work with, and you already know what you're talking about. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that just increases your chances of getting an offer tremendously. And I think I'm convinced that's also a way I got myself the offers, because I was basically not asking for anything. I'm not begging to get hired. I mean, they invite me for an interview, right? So that means they are thinking about hiring me because they're already putting some. When somebody interviews you, that means they're already willing to hire you, and now you have to basically provide value in by telling them what you can do for them. And I think that's true for everything in life, right? If you just say, yeah, I would work here, yeah, so I can work well, yeah, so please hire me. That is not as
Right.
successful. But we say even a supermarket, oh yeah, I saw there was like when I went through a supermarket yesterday, some of the cans were like difficult to reach. If you hire me for sorting those cans, I suggest putting those cans into the other aisle. That's just out of the top of my mind. Just for every job, you can come up with something that you can already do for them once you are in that job. And
Right.
first of all, it's fun. it's more fun than just stand there and awkwardly ask for the
Provide
job.
value. Providing value. How can you provide value? Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like if you're the higher up you get, and if you have a company, like your life gets harder because you now have more difficult problems to solve. So you
yeah,
basically need help, you know. So if you have somebody that comes to you, if you're trying to hire somebody, then you want somebody that you want to know how they can help you. Like you don't want to be there training them all day because that's just a waste of your time. So if you can have somebody who's like, okay, I'll help you in this way, then that's like a very easy plug and play kind of, you know. It's like,
yeah,
okay, that makes a lot of sense, you know. Come on, right? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
I guess tying
yeah,
this back to
exactly.
academic composition, you know, how can we help people accomplish their goals? You know, how do we provide value for people? If, you know,
First of
somebody
all,
who's in college,
of course,
somebody
like,
who's
yeah,
even not necessarily college, because we also work on other stuff. We work on like resumes, we work on cover letters. Like if you're trying to apply to tons of jobs, you know, it's super annoying to have to be sitting there just trying to make a new cover letter for each job that you apply to. Like, you know what I mean? Like how many jobs can you apply to if you're just trying to make a new cover letter for each job? I guess we can help you with that also. Like we do university
yeah.
stuff and then also career related stuff. So anyway, go ahead.
So the thing is that I saw something online today that fits very well with that. It says basically procrastination is often the outcome of not knowing exactly how to go about a task. So a task feels overwhelming if you don't know where to start. And instead of sitting there and you dread writing this resume and you don't really know how, and you don't, is it really worth it? It's like sending out resumes and nobody's hiring right now. And why am I even doing that? And now it's like 11 p.m. I still have to write this resume. And oh God, I hate this. Why not give it to, I mean, I could basically tell you how to write a resume. I could do it. I could do it more quickly. I know exactly what to do and where, and our other writers also. So we know specifically how to do something, and so you farm it out, and we can help you there directly. We know exactly what a good, it starts with what is a good cover letter format, right? So where should you put your name? Where should you put maybe a logo? What should be on the resume, right? You don't write like 10 pages of blurb about your entire life, right? But how do you know what are the important points of your life, right? And if so I can basically write your resume that has the bullet points there. So when the hiring manager is there and sees that, and oh, okay, oh, nice. Oh, okay. I know the 5 skills the guy brings with him. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, let's consider this guy, right? So one thing that hiring managers like really don't like to do is read through walls of text, because they read like so many resumes per day. If you just have keywords that stand out, like immediately, boom, your resume stands out, and that's something we can help with, right? And it's just much better. We don't procrastinate because we know exactly where to start, and so then it's a win-win-win situation for everyone involved.
Mhm. I guess for somebody like, let's say, I guess a resume would be somebody who's looking for a job. That would probably be post college. How about somebody in college? How could we help somebody who's in college?
How somebody who's in college and he wants to apply to another college,
Well, just in
or
general.
somebody who doesn't have
So,
much skills. Oh yeah, okay.
well,
So in
like
college
a
and he wants to have.
resume would be like the type of service we would offer to somebody generally who's finishing up school or maybe who's done with school, and they're looking for a job. So that's one type of customer. But we also help a lot of customers who are in college or in grad school. How can we help those people?
It's actually a good point, because the earlier you start with the job search, the better. Ideally, you don't want to finish college and then start looking for jobs. The earlier you
Mm-hmm.
start looking for jobs, the more likely you can already ask people. In college, we come back to networking. Uh, every you don't need to be on an Ivy League school to network. You network everywhere. If you start and write a resume and CV early on in college, and to think about how to apply somewhere, the more you realize what kind of skills you still need. I mean, first of all, if you sit down, you may realize a skills gap, right? You know which course you may have to take next. But if you want to actually do write a resume, then you could basically um, uh, write what brought you into college, why did you want to go there, and what have you done since you got to college. So if you give us like your backstory, why did you get in college and what you want to get out of this course, we can write a good resume out of that. Of course, the skills are not really there yet. Maybe you work, but maybe you're working to get a license in a certain skill, and then you can still say, my license is going to be that I will have my license next summer, right? And I was interested in getting into programming because as a kid, I always liked the programming. And then I went to the military, for example, and I realized they need many programmers. So after I left the military, now I want to really do programming. I'm in college to get a license on programming, get my Oracle license, and I will have it at 2024 or 2023. That's next year, and in summer 2023, and therefore I wanted to already inquire if there's some kind of job offering then, or whether there's some internship I can help you with.
Yeah,
There are
that just
ways
made
to
me think
leverage
actually.
that you have, right?
Right. That just made me think actually too, because like I'm thinking about people that are very good at a certain skill, like say engineers, right? They're very good at
Yeah,
engineering, but they might not be as good trying to convince somebody of their skills, right? So that's where we
yeah,
come in. Like
yeah.
we are, somebody else is focused on structural engineering, trying to build bridges or whatever, but we're the people that are going to help you convey that you have that ability, I guess.
I think the good point about this, because I also applied for my postdoc positions while that was 2004, and didn't start the postdoc position before 2005. And I was still working on my paper back then. But when I was in Princeton, NYU, I introduced the research I had done so far, right? I was showing them what I had done so far. And it kind of like became clear that, yeah, that research is pretty interesting. It doesn't need to have a publication, right? I didn't need to be finished with it for it to count. And so if you started a course in computer science, and that computer science course will end with you getting your license in a year down the line, people can already trust you that you will get that license, because you were already accepted into that course, and you already have worked on something that you can then showcase, right? Sometimes it's just, companies also need some time to ramp this up, right? That's why that's why you shouldn't only apply for a job after you're done with college, because it takes can take up to 6 months or even longer to get into certain jobs, right? So basically, it makes sense to say, okay, I apply, and if you decide to give my application more attention, then while I'm wrapping up my course, you can make sure that I can basically that you can hire me in summer 2024, and I can hit the ground running, right? That's a very appealing proposition for a company as well, right? If I know somebody applies and I may need to fill a position in summer 2023, and that is just when that guy will have his course done and he'll get his license, I will be very happy, because I know that guy is super motivated. He will have just gotten his license. He'll come working with flying colors over to me in my company. That's a good choice. Maybe not as experienced as someone who has been in the job for 5 to 10 years, but then again, I'm looking for an
Mm,
entry level position, and that's fantastic if I hire someone who just graduated or just has a license, because I mean, what difference does it make? He has a license. I don't
mm,
know much about the guy. It's a risk anyway, right? But if he's so motivated, already applying to me, already reaching out, then this shows like a lot of commitment, and that definitely is valued positively. And
mm,
so, even if you don't yet have your license, it's actually still a good idea to already apply and write a resume, and we can help with that, of course, right?
mhm. Okay. So, so I guess the question would be, how can academic composition provide value to our customers? I guess one way is by helping them with their resume.
Yeah.
Um, what other ways can we provide value to
Well, you can
people? Yeah.
also, yeah, but if people are very busy, we can basically also become a project manager for them. Basically, I know some clients of ours that are never really sure when their next exam is, simply because their schedule is so busy. And so it's a great help if they have someone reminding them, oh, don't forget the exam tomorrow, right? So that's what we can also
Hmm.
provide, project management, doing courses. And then of course some people just don't have any time, don't know how to write an essay at all. So we can provide primers there as well, of course, right? You can even write an example essay for you, and then you can look at it.
So I guess that one would be like a little virtual assistant where we're helping you
Yeah,
keep track of your assignments, keep track of your classes, and then giving you some tutoring and advice. And then on top of that, if you need a little more support, we can actually help
yep,
you, if you're trying to write some papers or do some assignments. Okay, great.
yeah, yeah,
What
and
we were
yeah,
talking
absolutely.
about, what we were talking about before, where we were discussing how like mainly the main reason why people go to college is to make the contacts, to make the networking, like that's what separates you. I guess if we're helping you do your assignments and we're helping you with your class, I guess that frees up more time for you to go to these talks and to meet these people. And if your assignments are taken care of, then you can
There you
now
go.
help your professor doing stuff, specific tasks for that professor. I guess that frees you up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Hmm.
Because, yeah, providing content is, yeah, providing content is important, but there's no job in real life ever where you don't at some point move up and start into getting into the management phase. As much as I like to provide content, at one point you got to manage other people providing content. That's just the way it is, because that's just part of efficiency. Even within a company, it's a bad use of company resources if they have people that are only providing all the content to them. They need some people internally that manage them. That's why you have managers, right? So you always you need to move up sooner or later into a management or leadership role. And then just writing itself is just not that important, right? You just outsource the writing, same way as managers outsource getting tasks done. Yeah, right. So that's basically what they manage employees to get tasks done. And I haven't seen a single profession where it wouldn't be the case that after a while you got to manage other people, because you can get much more done if you have your own dream. Like initially I talked about Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast doesn't do things on his own. Mr. Beast has a huge YouTube channel, and he invests like millions of dollars into his stunts. But he has a whole batch of people work for him that are basically coordinating the stunt. That basically he comes up with the ideas, and then his team thinks about execution, and then they delegate that execution to somebody
Right.
else. And that's how it works everywhere, right? You're just so much more efficient. And not everybody is good in everything, right? Not everyone is a good writer. Not everyone is good at math. Not everyone is good at managing, right? It's all
Right.
all things that you need to take into account. But it's you don't want to be bogged down by just producing writing after writing after writing. You want to do outsource some of these things, and then get into a leadership role more quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Like Mr. Beast isn't out there. I mean, he's definitely has his skills, but he's not going to be out there maybe with the camera specifically himself filming. He's not going to be the one out there collecting
Right,
the payments from all the people.
right,
He's not the one that's going to be doing all of the specific minute details. And in our case, I mean, we have a bunch of PhDs and writers and professors. I mean, you basically have to do better than than that, right? Like if you hire us, you're hiring the PhDs and professors that are on our team to do it for
yeah,
you. So if you do it yourself, you have to basically do better than a PhD, right? That's sort of the service that we're offering is we're offering
yeah,
people that are highly skilled to do this on your behalf.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, are there any other final thoughts that you wanted to to convey? Is there anything that you thought of, last minute things you wanted to add here? We went
Yeah,
over interesting.
we talked about indentured servitude in the beginning. So maybe to close the circle, it's like just imagine Roman slaves could have outsourced their labor. That would have been a much cooler way for them to live, right?
I
So
guess they
yeah,
did with
outsourcing.
slaves, right? I guess that was how they did it.
Yeah, that was the problem. One person has to take the brunt of all the work. One person is at the bottom of the food chain, and I can only say, don't let that be you.
Hmm. Hmm. All right, cool. I guess, is that a way out maybe of the cycle of indentured servitude? Is maybe have someone help you? If there's
Yeah,
two of you,
definitely.
maybe the two of you can combine forces, and where one person would be in indentured servitude forever. Maybe if there's two of you, maybe there's all with the two of you, you can maybe get out of it somehow.
Absolutely. Yep. It's like hiring some people hire like a maid to clean their house, or some people hire a cook. Somebody like you're ordering a Lyft or Uber if you want to go somewhere.
Right.
That's basically what we do. What we do.
Perfect. Perfect. Cool. Well, on that note, I guess nice talking to you, Florian.
Nice
Awesome.
talking to you too. Bye.